Hey guys, welcome. Today I'm here with magic mushroom expert Jillian Wisborg, who is also a good friend of mine. And today we're going to be answering some frequently asked questions about using magic mushrooms. Today we cover some awesome topics like how to microdose properly, how to dose properly, how to have the proper set and setting, how to avoid having a bad trip, the differences between different strains, a lot of the science behind magic mushrooms. So Jillian's just like a fountain of knowledge, and I think you guys will really enjoy this talk that we have.
Hey, I'm Jillian Wisborg, and I am a trained herbalist. I studied in California for 4 years for like Ayurvedic Western Chinese herbs. And I also have a background in holistic sciences with nutrition, as well as iridology analysis and orthomolecular nutrition. However, I am an avid explorer. I definitely look up to people like Timothy Ferriss and kind of like the self-doers, people that find their own path, and so I have a series of both alternative but also like traditional education as some of the things that come as my background. But more importantly, I am a human being. I'm a human being of experience, and I'm a huge people person. I have a big heart, and I love to learn and connect with people.
Awesome. So first of all, I wanted to just ask, what is like one of your most memorable magic mushroom experiences? I think this is just very relatable, a good way to kind of introduce this whole world, because the only way we can really relate is through kind of sharing experiences, really. So
Mhm. Okay, well, I would say one of the most memorable experiences I had was probably about 15 journeys deep. So I'd already been using mushrooms for a few years, and it was like my second year. I did about 1.5 gram journey, and it was like by myself. I was in my room, and next thing you know, it was as if I didn't recognize anything around me.
oh,
I was in my
shit.
own bedroom. It was like I'm looking at my laptop, I'm looking through my music tunes, I'm starting to like look at my phone, and my phone is saying like, oh Jill, like, come to this event, and I'm like, yeah, sure. And then I start to go and do this thing called makeup, and it was as if my soul had been dropped into my body and had no understanding of what this is. And I just remember thinking, I'm like, whoa, this is so cool, my name's Jillian, and like, look, I know how to do my makeup, and ooh, she listens to really cool music. And it was so different. It was just
That's so cool.
discombobulating experience, but there was such a medicine in it, in the sense of it really brought me back to that understanding of like, I do believe that we are just souls living a human experience, and that we've had so many other experiences beyond this one. So for me, it was just like, this is the container that I've chosen to show up in, as a woman, as somebody that's like
Wow.
explores the medicine and likes this certain type of music. So that's probably one of the first ones that comes to mind as the most memorable.
You do have good music. You showed me a bunch of good songs. Actually, that's crazy. That feeling of that, I guess, could be kind of sort of an ego death. It's like you're kind of just being dropped into a human body, like you said, and everything's new all of a sudden. It's like, what the heck is going on?
What?
Yeah, it's like I always look at my hands. I'm like,
Fingers?
how do these work? And for a lot
Exactly.
of people that can be scary, right? So that's why do you have any advice like for maybe people who are unfamiliar or maybe not ready, or not ready, but maybe who would be a little uncomfortable with that experience? What kind of advice would you give them if they're going through that all of a sudden and they don't know what to do?
Of an awakening experience. Well, there's a lot to be said for what goes into preparing oneself for a mushroom experience and a mushroom journey. And reading about it, hearing about other people's stories can really help. But I would say the best preparation is knowing what already makes you feel supported, loved, and connected. So be it like your own bedroom, be it certain nature spaces, a certain friend. So having kind of like the energy around you of things and people that make you feel comfortable, I think that's very valuable. And also, dose is such a huge component. People are not necessarily going to have their first experience as like an out of body type of experience like what I had. That was many journeys deep into it, where I believe the mushrooms are also cognizant of how much people can handle
Yeah.
to an extent, on what they're
Yeah.
prepared for. So the biggest thing people are always concerned about is like, how do I avoid a bad trip? Well, you avoid a bad trip through setting your intention. Don't mix substances. Don't be drinking. Don't be mixing it with, ketamine or cocaine or whatever else, because people often do.
People are crazy. Yeah.
Um, be mindful that this is like it's supposed to be a very sacred experience. So what would you do if you felt like you were like entering the temple of heaven, if you will? Like that is a way that you could perceive of it. And if you don't want to have any connection to that greater spiritual beingness, then what would you do if you wanted to enter a space of sacred self-connection, right? What would that look like for you? Do you need to take a bath? Do you need to remove certain foods from your body for a little bit of time? Do you need to abstain from thinking certain thoughts? What does that look like? So that's what I bring it back down to. What makes you feel comfortable and how do you create a sacred space?
Yeah, that's such an amazing answer. It's very intuitive for you, right? So we could give you the 1, 2, 3 step formula, but then that wouldn't be authentic to you. So it's the whole process is very important, that you're listening to your own body, your own needs. And I always say it's kind of like you're going to a wedding. You're not going to show up unprepared in your pajamas. You haven't brushed your teeth or fixed your hair or anything. It's a sacred day. So you want to prepare beforehand, right? You want to have everything planned out ahead of time. So
yeah, I love that. That's so good. You're showing up to your own wedding.
Yeah, it's like in my pajamas, like with like teeth not brushed. People, if you're doing mushrooms and you're not ready, then you're gonna get burned, basically. So you want to be very careful. And that being said, what would you say is your favorite way to dose mushrooms? I'm thinking more for a macro dose, so in between 1 gram and 3 grams. Normally, I don't recommend people going over 3 grams, just because
as a beginner.
Well, as a beginner, yeah. As you get a more advanced, more comfortable, yeah, you can go into the 4 and 5 gram territory. But in general, it's like I've had extremely profound awakening experiences with like 2 grams of mushrooms. So a lot of people think like, oh, it's how much do I do is like how much awakening I'm gonna get. It's like that's kind of true, but not entirely. And
I agree with you.
Yeah. So what would you recommend for just like your favorite way to use them in a safe way and all that stuff?
Okay, so there's a couple things that come to mind, and dosing is a huge component. I have been a part of many journeys where people are complete beginners, and they do get up to 5 grams in a single journey, but it's built up over a time period of about 4 hours. My recommendation for total noobs is usually to not go above 2 grams to start as a dose.
Yep.
2 grams is my like sweet spot a lot of the times, because that's enough just to start to feel the sensations and get into what I call mushroom world,
Yes.
which is very different than our day-to-day world.
Yeah.
And even if you are somebody that is, used to alternative experiences, it's like what you said. I've had very profound experiences on 1.5 grams, even 1 gram, right? And I believe that also as people continue to work with the medicine of mushrooms, they become more potent in a sense, smaller doses, as you sensitize yourself to that mushroom world, which to me is like what Stephen Harry Bunard talks about as like the other veil or the fifth dimension that we can gain access to, which has a lot to do with the idea that there is more senses beyond our 5 senses. And as you become attuned to that other side of things, which is really higher attunement to oneself, then you can start to gain more comfortability in the higher doses, but it's also easier to gain a lot from a very small amount. So beginners, 2 grams is a great amount. I like the lemon tech method for noobs because lemon tech is where you like crush up lemons, like 1 whole lemon, and then you put the mushrooms into like a coffee grinder, for example, you dose it out, combine it, and then that way it doesn't have any like taste that's kind of like gross.
Yeah.
That's the thing that turns people off most. My number one favorite way is if you can get your own chocolate. If you can get like raw cacao with the mushrooms. Cacao is a potentiator of mushrooms, so you could do 1 gram with the mushrooms and you could have a really powerful experience. So I find that to be very accessible to people as well.
Yeah, I agree. Cacao is very heart opening. So sometimes I'll have like a chocolate drink before my mushroom trip, and it's just always a very positive and loving kind of vibe and experience. Yeah, guys. So lemon teching, that's the verdict for beginners. So if you're interested in that, you can just Google it, and there's probably all kinds of advice online telling you how to do that properly. Make sure you do your research, and you're not, throwing a bunch of mushrooms into your mom's coffee grinder, and then your mom goes to use the coffee grinder, and then your mom's drinking coffee one morning, and she's going to work, and she's like, "I saw elves on the road."
Highly unlikely. I tend to feel that a lot of people have this misconception that you're going to take mushrooms and have complete hallucinatory experience.
Yes.
Realistically, sometimes you can't even get to that hallucinatory state where you could see other things unless you're 5 grams or more.
Yeah, I've never seen, yes, sorry to interrupt. I've never seen anything on mushrooms, and you're right, it is a big misconception.
The only time that I've seen actual complete changes in my environment was on a 4.5 gram journey, and it was in the woods, and I dosed it all at once because there's peaks to mushrooms and then valleys. So, it's like, for example, 2 grams of mushrooms is typically going to be about a total 6-hour journey from peak to kind of relaxation and getting out of that state, right? If you start to take a higher amount, you're going to peak a lot faster and a lot deeper, right? Where your brain is able to process the world around it in a lot more of like that kaleidoscope kind of way, if you will.
Wow. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So, I did a 5 gram trip once, all at once, and it was in silent darkness as well. And so in that environment, the visuals that you get are not in the sense of like you see characters or like Pikachu, like, jumping out of the wild grass or whatever, but it's more kind of like the visions of consciousness and like the shifting of your own imagination. And it's kind of infinite, right? So there's an infinite amount of how much your consciousness can shift and change in terms of different colors, right? Because every color on the spectrum is invented by your own consciousness. So you can kind of create entire dream realities in your own mind. That's why we recommend, could you talk a little bit about set and setting for us?
Absolutely. So set is like your state of mind going into the journey. My recommendation to people that are totally new is just to set the intention of being open to receiving whatever comes with ease and grace. You could add other intentions supplementary to that. For example, intention to know oneself better, intention to see any things that are blocking you in romance, in finances, in career, and purpose, in, connection. And the set or the state of mind is extremely valuable and important, because if you've got an idea of what you want to get out of it and it's so concrete, you may miss other important factors that could be related. Mushrooms have an interesting way of that. So that's my recommendation for going in with your set, is have a clear concept, but at the same time, keep it open to what will come. The second aspect to that is with setting really comes down to, okay, make sure that you're not going to be interrupted, that you don't have to have any like dying important priorities, with work or deadlines. Ensure that you don't have scary objects around you. So for example, gargoyle statues, like swords, creepy looking masks.
Interesting.
I would also include into that, be conscientious of the music that you have on. I think it's better to go with one of like some of the different YouTube playlists for mushrooms can be great. I have my own playlist that I use that are really fabulous for kind of like lighter beats. Then it goes into deeper, more emotional kind of sounds to bring up things out of me. And then it kind of calms down in a sense. So it's nice to have like mushroom created playlists are really
nice.
beneficial.
Could you link that to me, and then I'll put it in the description. Nice. Okay, good.
And also with music, I would say like, if you're playing, like I love like My Chemical Romance and like Panic! At the Disco and like Rage Against the Machine and a bunch of rock music from when I was a teenager. I
Fuck
also like
you,
a
I
lot of
won't do what you tell
but
me.
it doesn't jive like
No, it
necessarily in
doesn't.
the same way. Like it could just be really like not beneficial. So it's better to have music that's more instrumental is what I'd
Yes.
recommend rather than
Yep.
implanting messages, because you want to be open
Yep.
to receiving the messages and support that comes from the mushrooms, not taking in so much exterior information. Important to spend at least, I would say, like an hour and a half during a journey, just really paying attention to yourself, closing out the exterior environment, even if you see pretty colors or cool things, whatever. Have what I call like the yin time and the yang time. The yin time is the night, the darkness, the feminine energy, the going in, and then the extroverted time is the yang time, like speaking to people, painting, writing, like coordinating your space, like do whatever you want to move your body, but have both in a journey. And you could even break it down. Someone like myself, I like to do like 3 hours of yin, 3 hours of yang time, and I just kind of flow with it according to what I want. But I'm such an experienced mushroom, advocate and user
Yeah.
that I like have had so many journeys that
You
I just
you
kind of
you
flow
kind
with
of
it.
flow with what you want. Guys, I hope you're taking notes. This is amazing advice. That's exactly what I agree as well, is to cut off especially your vision. Well, you don't have to be crazy about it, but
Especially.
just wear an eye mask for an hour just as you're coming up, a potential technique that you can use. I've actually done that before on 4 grams of mushrooms, and I remember I was sitting with my eye mask just meditating and just trying to become aware of my own awareness and try and just keep my own awareness grounded in itself, which is like a self-inquiry practice that I learned from enlightened masters like Ramana Maharshi and Nisargadatta Maharaj, which is just kind of resting in that sense of I am. And with your senses cut off, it's extremely powerful. In that moment, I had like literally a huge awakening experience where I literally became one with God, and it was like my being was infinite, and I had a communion with all of the enlightened masters who have ever lived. We all sat together and we had discourses and talks, and in not literally, but this is kind of the energy that was there. Like that, why not, right? I'm infinite, so I can do that, right? So it was very yeah, so follow Jillian's advice. Don't be playing video games while you're coming up on your trip. There's no need to play to even stimulate or entertain yourself. People think like, okay, I'm going to do mushrooms. And then, okay, what am I going to do when I'm on mushrooms? Like, oh, okay, I'll play Mario Kart, I'll watch cartoons. You don't really have to do anything. I actually recommend just doing nothing, and you'll actually have a much better time, in my opinion.
Because and we think that we need to like know what to do to entertain ourselves, but when it comes to mushroom world, if the purpose of the journey is for self-discovery, then playing video games and doing that
Exactly.
maybe not going to mesh as
Yeah.
well as just focusing on you.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. Let's talk a little bit about the popular fad of microdosing. So I call it a fad. I think it's awesome. I
Mhm.
personally don't like microdosing. That's for me. The reason why is because if I need a productivity boost, or if I need to be really awake and aware, I have other ways of doing that, like cold showers, yoga, whatever. That's not really mushrooms. However, a lot of people really like microdosing. So, and I know you know a lot about it. So, what's your opinion on that, and how can you do that effectively?
Yeah, my real love of microdosing has come down to seeing one of my colleagues and his massive personality change take place. So I
Yeah.
am definitely a promoter of microdosing, especially if you're a beginner, or if you have ADHD like tendencies,
Okay.
or if you have anxiety or depression, but you are on an SSRI, a serotonin reuptake inhibitor drug, and antidepressants, Zoloft,
Okay.
any stronger medications where it would prohibit you from doing a proper journey and
Yes.
getting the 2 gram mark plus, then microdosing can be very powerful because
Yeah.
it will still help to shift you into a more positive state of mind. And not only that, so the cool thing with psilocybin is that it's 3 molecules away from one molecule away from being like DMT,
Hmm.
dimethyltryptamine, the spirit molecule.
Yeah.
Psilocybin also uniquely is almost the exact same structure as serotonin, and it is acting as what's called like an analog. So essentially, like psilocybin can help to stimulate our own serotonin production. Serotonin is like the ultimate like mood booster. Like it gives motivation, it makes
Hmm.
us want to do things. It often is like purported to be the thing that makes us feel good. And the problem is a lot of people are serotonin deficient. Mind you, 80% of serotonin is produced in the gut. Okay. The rest is produced in the brain. But by having microdosing, it will help to teach your own body how to produce more of this. And through microdosing, I find by the third week, it's like the benefits are really felt, where it's almost like it's hard to think a negative thought, which if you can imagine for a second, so many of us get caught up in the mental charades and gymnastics, and we're on the hamster wheel. Let's get off the hamster wheel. Let's microdose. Microdosing can also help to continue the benefits of a larger journey. So typically a microdose, according to the MAPS Institute, they say it's anything less than a gram. Realistically, a microdose is going to be something where you're not going to have a hallucinogenic effect. So you're not going to see visuals. It's not going to produce any really strong emotional upheavals. So it's a lot more manageable, especially for those that are more on the brink and a little
Yeah.
scared of what psychedelics are, what it could mean for them. And what I usually do for myself with microdosing is, I do 100 micrograms to 200, 300 micrograms in a sitting. That's my kind of ideal number. For total noobs or for people that are like 120 pounds or less, 100 micrograms could be a great place to start.
So sorry, just my question, would that be equivalent to a 0.1 gram, or so like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Precisely. And there's so much to be said within the conversation of microdosing, because 0.3 may actually be better for if you have like group work to do and social interactions, whereas
Okay.
0.1 might be a lot better if you have more like writing and solo activities.
Okay.
But some people find the exact opposite. So with microdosing, if you're doing it for the purpose of productivity and work environments, start low, 100 micrograms, and then play around and work up. Don't operate like machines or anything off the first day. You really want to check your sensitivity, but generally speaking, like 100 micrograms, even 300 micrograms, typically you can still do all the things without it interfering. It's just enhancing your brain's ability to take in information in a new and creative way.
That's amazing. And I think you've actually convinced me to change my mind and try out some micro dosing. Yeah, I didn't even consider a lot of those factors that you brought up. So awesome. Yeah, guys. So yeah, so don't microdose like 0.8, 0.9, because I've done like trips that are 1 gram and it's all of a sudden I'm like really high. You don't want that if you're like going to work or you're going grocery shopping or whatever. I recommend like Jillian said, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. And what about the frequency of dose and tolerance? Can we talk a little bit about tolerance for microdosing?
Absolutely. So when we're talking about tolerance, we're really trying to say, what is the max amount that we can take while still being functional in day-to-day activities, working, driving, doing all the things. That's what I would like look at if you're looking at it from the standpoint of you want it for just overall benefits. If you're not using it in an environment where you have responsibilities and activities and people to be accountable to, then you could microdose, let's say in the evening or when you're off work, when you just have some free time, and then you can be more in like play mode. You could be like playing an instrument, making music. You could be cleaning your house and microdosing. Okay. So there's very many applications when it comes to microdosing. Tolerance wise, if you're doing it in your own free time and you're wanting to play music or what have you, that's where I like more like 0.5.
Oh, okay.
Because I notice it just has an amplification effect for my creativity, but I'm going to be feeling a lot more effects of the mushrooms, such as like hot, sweaty palms. My body temperature might go up. I might feel more heated. My brain might feel like it's buzzing as if it's like high on caffeine. So there's other kind of stronger effects that come with a higher microdose that I would do in more of like my personal time.
Nice. And so obviously we don't want to be microdosing every single day because your body's going to create some kind of tolerance to the psilocybin, correct? So
Oh,
it's good.
okay.
No, it's okay. You
Yeah.
good advice with what you said, but yeah, so like how do we shift on and off? Like
Yeah. So the thing about the tolerance side from that standpoint
yep.
of, okay, we don't usually want to do mushrooms every single day. The reason is because our bodies get so used to that amount so quickly that we would need to raise the amount drastically
Yeah.
potentially. We
And
would
then
do it
next
every
thing you know,
single
you're
day.
eating a bowl of mushrooms for breakfast just to feel a little high, just a little buzz. So, so we don't want that.
And yeah, like it doesn't take very much. Paul Stamets, who's one of the leaders in mycology, and he's got the fungi.com domain, and he's been studying mushrooms for 30 plus years. He microdoses just about every other day. But a lot of the leading microdose specialists would suggest 1 day on, 2 days off, 1 day on, 2 days off, right? For up to
Nice.
90 days even, and then you could go off of it for a month. If you're doing like 100 micrograms, which is such a small amount, that's where I personally have felt like every other day is quite okay.
Yep.
Because it's such a small amount that
Mhm.
the tolerance isn't as rapidly built.
Yeah, and your tolerance is equivalent to how much you take. Like you mentioned on one of your calls before, that really helped me a lot was if you're taking 5 grams, you might need about 10 days to like not to reset. Whereas if you're taking a 0.1, you might only need 24 hours to reset.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
good.
And consider too that there's still, even though you're not microdosing on that day off, there's still change being made in the brain. The brain is still adapting to all of those new connections that you just made, and you're integrating. And
Yeah.
integration of a mushroom journey or a microdosing experience is just as important as dosing itself.
Yes.
I see too many people where they love the psychedelics, but then it's like, okay, you're journeying every single week 2 grams. And maybe there's a point in time where that's necessary,
Yeah.
but there's so much that you can gain because it's just like as if I was your mom in a sense. And I said, like, hey, like, make sure to organize this and follow up with these people and take care of yourself in this way. Those things are a day-to-day practice.
Yep.
So if you keep dipping into the mushroom bank account, if you will, that's where I
Yeah.
feel like abuse comes into effect, and where bad trips can also be more like of an occurrence for a person.
Yeah,
And I
and
have
it
my own experiences around that too.
okay. Yeah, and that's like your mom kind of following you around everywhere you go, like telling you what to do all the time. It's like you need to grow up and kind of learn the lesson yourself. So you take the mushrooms and then you integrate, right? You actually need to like implement, maybe you get an insight like, oh, I need to eat healthier. And now you need to actually eat healthier. Like don't go back and
Mhm.
do the mushrooms again until
Or the mom
you,
will yell at you again because she's like, I already told you the last 3 journeys plus to do this thing, you're not doing it. And then that's where it's like
huh.
there can almost be like net not so beneficial effects,
Yeah.
especially when you're doing the higher doses.
Yeah. That's so amazing. Yeah, we're definitely relating to these mushrooms as teachers, right? So just like how you wouldn't, uh, like a professor at school, right? You would treat him or her with respect, and you would,
They will bless you. They will
yeah,
bless you.
yeah, exactly. They'll bless you with good grades and good marks. So yeah, okay. So but before we go, I wanted to talk a little bit about the difference between different strains, and maybe you can recommend some of your favorite strains. Yeah, basically, and maybe the differences. Because for me personally, I like golden teachers, but like it's kind of hard for me to like tell the difference all the time, just because everything's always different in my life. So it's hard to know if it was the mushrooms or if it was just me. So yeah. So what are some strains you'd recommend or that you like, and what are the differences?
Yeah. So typically mushrooms are graded on what they do and their differences amongst the different categories of how like cerebral it is, so how mentally activating it is.
My favorite.
How much, likewise,
Yeah.
how much of like, a body buzz it is, how much
Yeah.
of a hallucinatory experience it could be, how potent it is, which includes kind of like the duration. Um, and so like what you said, golden teachers, I feel are a really beautiful balance between the body relaxing effects, but also the cerebral support. So having that helping hand, that helping voice, to help figure out what's going on in the noggin. Golden teachers are a favorite for beginners. I find that they're very balanced potency. That being said, because some mushrooms are grown in manure versus coconut coir versus other substrates, if you will, the potency of even one strain or the effects of one strain could still differ. That's
Yes.
a little bit more complicated, and this is more my advanced teachings around mushrooms, but how mushrooms are grown are just as important as the strain as well. Very key.
Yeah, because there's love and energy that goes into the grow process, and that obviously affects the strain.
Definitely. Yeah. I feel like mushrooms are like an absorbent tool too. So if you can grow your own mushrooms, the mushrooms will give you back a lot because it knows exactly what you need. And there's whole sciences around this of even like putting your saliva into the root of the fungi and being able to feel the differences of based off of your unique chemistry, and then the mushrooms grabbing the nutrients that you even uniquely need to support the system. But so golden teachers are one of my favorites. I also have a real love for blue meanies. Blue meanies are a very joyous, happy, uplifting, fun strain.
I like those
I typically find, and they're very visual. I find them to be very, very visual. I've done like 2 grams and seen like, wow, like it was very pronounced, comparatively speaking to the golden teachers.
Yeah.
So
The golden teachers are barely visual. Yeah, but okay. Anyways, continue.
Yeah, so I find of the blue meanies that I've had, I really appreciate what it does for my art and painting and creating. And then I would also say that penis envy can be very fun as a strain to do. Penis envy is one that's a very strong body mellow effect. So if you need more of that calming energy, then penis envy is very powerful. And just to be said as well, there are literally over 180 known species of psilocybin containing mushrooms. And the family that we're speaking about right now is the cubensis strain, right? Which is the one that's usually most easily grown and most easily accessible. There's still other ones like Mexicana and azarins. The azarins is one that are more found in like the deep mossy woods. Those usually it's like 1 gram of those is more like 5 grams of golden teachers type of thing. So it is really important to know your mushrooms because you might only need to do, because it's literally like 4 to 5 times more psilocybin per gram in the azarin strain compared to the cubensis strains.
Okay.
Yeah, it's wild. But we typically in North America don't have a lot of access to the Mexicana, the azarin strains. We have more access to cubensis.
Okay. Jillian, thank you so much for coming on and for sharing your amazing wisdom with us. If you wanted to share any of your own work with where like we can find more of your amazing stuff, go ahead and do that right now so people can find you.
Yeah, I'd say follow me on Instagram. My tag is at Jillian Wisborg, and Adam can link it below as well.
Yep.
And I'd also just suggest if you have any questions, just send me a message, send me a DM. If you're on Facebook only, then I go under Jillian Marielle. You could reach out to me as well that way. And I'm always happy to hear questions. I love the world of mushrooms. If you're watching this video, thank you so much for taking all of this in. I know it can seem a little bit overwhelming sometimes, but it's one of the most valuable tools I've ever found of the many different holistic practices available to really step into yourself, to step into your authenticity, who you really are, which comes with tons of different benefits of just life lining up in ways that you couldn't imagine could happen for you, right? It's truly the magic of mushrooms, right? So, don't be afraid and don't be discouraged. If you heard some things in this podcast today that turned you off a little bit, I'm always happy to hear about those things and help you understand a little bit more, because I don't think that this is something that people should turn away just because of a little bit of fear.
Yeah. Awesome. Very well said. To summarize, just for beginners, like I always say in my videos, to make super simple, low dose, below 2 grams, safe set and setting, positive intention, and you're gonna have an awesome time as long as you follow the proper safety protocol and you're loving and accepting of yourself.
Be your own best friend.
Be your own best friend. Exactly. All right, Jillian, thank you so much. And hopefully maybe we can do another one of these episodes, and take care. Thanks for sharing everything.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Adam. Bye.